Hello and welcome back to the channel today. My name is Andy and today we're back with another race review from the 2018 Formula 1 season. It is the night race from the Singapore Grand Prix that happened on Sunday, and as always we're going to get straight into starting off with the gossip from the lead up to the race itself. And of course the main gossip that came about from the race build up was the final announcement that Charles Leclerc is going to be Sebastian Vettel's teammate from next season. Now, as you'll know if you are someone who's been watching these reviews, will know, I'm happy at that. I really, really am. It's something that I've been looking forward to. I've been shouting for it, but over the last couple of races, you will also know I've been thinking maybe another season at Sauber wouldn't hurt him, but it's been announced now, and Leclerc is going to be at Ferrari. But what no one kindly expected was for Kimi to go back to the team that gave him his debut to 2001 and could go back to Sauber on a 2-year deal. Now, a couple of people are looking at this in another way though, and saying that if things go wrong with Leclerc at Ferrari, they've got a ready-made replacement. They're going to swap them back in the seats. It's an interesting concept, but I don't think that's something that will happen, to be honest. But I am really, really interested to see Leclerc in the Ferrari next season. And I think he will do extremely well next year. And I think the way that Sebastian seems to be finishing this season, which is with a whimper rather than a flourish at the moment, I think he could be in for a very hard time. The second thing we've seen over the weekend was 3 different concepts revealed for what F1 could look like from 2021 onwards. Now, a lot of these sort of futuristic style concepts are all said to reduce the drag, to reduce the dirty air that will allow the cars to run a lot closer to each other and improve the racing. And a few of them looked really, really cool, it must be said, especially if you get the chance to look at it. I really like the look of Concept 3. Really aggressive low down rear wing, couple of sort of almost wheel style covers in a way to try and prevent cars from interlocking wheels and flipping over in a sense, a la IndyCar from a couple of seasons ago, things like that. But they do look really good. But as is normally typical when it comes to Formula One and all these different teams that are all building their own chassis, it'll probably never come true. But it was interesting to see. We then got on to the action itself. Free Practice 1 was led by Red Bull, a track we expected them to do well. Ricciardo leading Max Verstappen, before Ferrari restored the order in Free Practice 2. Now at this point I just want to point out one thing. Free Practice 2 I was watching on my phone at work and I got a message from my dad. Now my dad was actually at this race in Singapore, the Jammy Gate, and if you've ever seen the helicopter shot from the hotel across the bay, the one that's got the pool on the roof, yeah, my dad was watching practice from that helicopter, and I'm at work and he knows full well I'm at work, and he sent me a video of him watching practice from the pool having a drink. To say I was jealous was a complete underestimation. But he did send me pictures all weekend, which was really, really cool to see some of the stuff that I had seen, some of the old cars in the fan areas. I would put them up, but I just don't have the equipment to be able to just upload them so quickly. So maybe another time, maybe I'll put them up onto my Twitter feed, so if you want to have a look at that, I'll maybe pop them up there. But Ferrari restored the order with FP2. I think it was Vettel took, if I remember rightly, yeah, you think it was him that took the fastest lap in FP2, a new outright track record as well. Although he did thump the wall, and it curtailed quite a bit of his running time as well, so that was not a good thing. Mercedes were struggling by this point. Bottas had even spun. Hamilton was as low as P6 in FP1. But then on Saturday in FP3, Raikkonen was first with another new outright track record. But Hamilton was 0.011 behind. He was right up there just before qualifying. And that was to prove crucial as we got into the qualifying session itself in the evening. Q1, poor Stoffel van Dorn. He's out of a drive next season, it looks like. And he was out of Q1 again. I think that's 8 races in a row now. Q1 elimination, so not good for the Belgium. He went out along with Hartley, both Williams, who were over a second behind anyone else. Never mind the limit, just anyone else who was over a second behind. That's how slow they were this weekend. And a very struggling Danish driver by the name of Kevin Magnussen, who's been struggling these last few races at a time you just don't want to be struggling. So he was not having a good weekend, so he went out in Q1 as well. Q2 seen Alonso miss out and getting into the top 10 by about a tenth of a second, but he was 11th, just ahead of Sainz. Both Saubers, we had Leclerc ahead of Ericsson, and Gasly was last of that 5 to go out. And then Q3, I swear to God, oh my goodness me, that lap from Hamilton. Again, if you've watched my videos, you'll know I'm not a fanboy. Okay, but that lap was unbelievable. It was an absolute stonker off a lap. I was watching qualifying at work on my lunch break, and I seen the time come up on the screen, a 1:36.0, and my jaw hit the floor. He was miles ahead. He was 3 times ahead of Verstappen's lap as well in that Red Bull, which supposedly had engine issues. It wasn't giving full power around all the lap. It was incredible as well. It was just incredible laps, and Hamilton showing why he is a 4-time champion. He may be someone who is Marmite to a lot of people. Either you love him, you hate him, predominantly. But you've got to respect him as a driver. He is astonishing. He took pole position once again. Verstappen second, Vettel could only take third, Bottas fourth, Raikkonen fifth, Ricciardo sixth. Perez was best of the rest in qualifying in P7. Now the race itself, I'm going to be honest, it was one of the more uneventful races, shall we say, of the season. I mean, it started off pretty interesting. Turn 1, Hamilton got away well. Verstappen didn't get the best of start. Vettel got a stonker. Side by side into turn 1, 2, 3. Verstappen stayed ahead, and then down Raffles Boulevard, Vettel got alongside and into turn 5, pulled ahead, and just in the nick of time as well, because the safety car came out as Perez and Ocon, once again, for not the first time in their history, had a collision that put Ocon on the wall and out of the race and caused the safety car. Now, it looked like a racing incident at first, and then when you look at the replays, Perez had all the space on the inside and seemed to just open the steering wheel up into his teammate. Now, he maybe thought Grosjean was on the inside. Grosjean had taken to the escape road between turn 1 and the pit exit, and he maybe thought he was still there, but when you look at the camera, obviously you can see he's not there. He had plenty of space. It was deemed a racing incident, probably because he couldn't see in the melee, but there was plenty of space, and now forced into a Band-Aid 2 from racing once again. And obviously Ocon looks like he's going to be out of a drive next season, which is terrible in itself, but it put the Frenchman out of the race. Constantine had the field, but the safety car came in at the end of lap 4, start of lap 5. We went back under green light racing, and not a lot happened. The drivers were on the hyper soft, the pink tyres, the softest tyres available, and they were trying to eke them out as much as possible, as long as they could. Very fragile tyres, but like trying to just take a piece of bubble gum and trying to make it last as long as you can. And they didn't do very much. There was only a couple of seconds between them, and they were basically just following each other in a big massive train. And it was Vettel and Ferrari who bit the bullet first and decided, we want a new piece of bubble gum. And they pitted on lap 15, and they went aggressive as well. They went from the pink hyper softs to the purple ultra soft tyre, and came out further down. They'd behind, obviously, Verstappen and Bottas, Raikkonen, Ricciardo and Perez as well, and that was to be the decisive part as well, which we'll come on to in a moment. Hamilton pitted next lap. He got out back ahead of Vettel and Perez, and then a couple of laps later Verstappen would pit. Now Hamilton and Verstappen put on the yellow soft tyres rather than the ultra softs, and during that phase when they two pitted, Vettel was stuck behind Perez and could not get past him straight away, and that was to make the difference when Max Verstappen came out of the pit lane. The Dutchman was back ahead of the German, just at the slimmest of margins, just as he came out the pit exit into turn 3 as it feeds into that third turn. The Dutchman was just ahead, Vettel having to think about the championship and just back out. And he had to nurse those tyres to the end of the race to avoid making another pit stop, and that was the end of his challenge. But they went aggressive and it failed. And on a track where they were expected to be favourites again, it was not to be one more time for Ferrari. At this point in the race, Raikkonen and Ricciardo were leading. They hadn't pitted. Raikkonen would come in later on, and Ricciardo would last a lap 28 on those Hypersoft tyres. And again, not much happening during that time, though, between those pit stops and Ricciardo's stop. The only main bit I can remember seeing was Leclerc doing a lovely wee switchback move on the Anderson Bridge on Gasly. Gasly was on the Hypersauce for 27 laps, and they were absolutely minced by that point. But the Monaco driver still showing good sense to not just dive down the inside and make a lovely switchback pass. And then lap 34, Perez was in the wars again. He'd been trying to pass Williams' Sergei Sorokin. Remember earlier in qualifying, they were over a second behind anybody, struggling. They had ran a long stint in the first part of the race on the yellow soft tyres, and they had tried to run long, and Perez wasn't pitted. He was stuck behind the Russian, and he felt he was weaving in the braking zone, and the Mexican was getting very upset and angry on the radio. Lap 34, he finally got past him, coming into that sort of stadium section where they go underneath the grandstand, which, funnily enough, is not far from where my dad was sitting. Unfortunately, he didn't have his camera out when he was when that happened. And they came out and along that bit of straight, and Perez just turned into the Russian. Just blatantly turned into him. I'm sorry. He just leave a sentences and just went, I'm turning left. Punctured tyre, rolled back to the pits, got it changed, put him out of the points, put him out of the race, damaged the Williams for the rest of the race. Perez got a drive-through penalty, but there was a lot of people calling for black flag and DQ for him as well. That's how bad many thought it was. Hulkenberg showed how it was done though, because he was watching all of this, and coming through towards turn 5, which leads on to Raffles Boulevard and the first DRS zone, he just went right round the outside of the Russian, taking advantage of everything, and just went, thanks, I'll have that, see you later. But yeah, Perez in the wars quite a few times this race, and who knows, the rumour is he has a deal in place next year. If he does, then he's fine, but if not, that kind of driving would put me off. Even though he's a proven quantity, that's going to put me off if I'm a team owner, I've got to be honest. And then we had the interesting moment on lap 38. Hamilton was about 4 or 5 seconds ahead of Verstappen, but Verstappen was catching because of traffic. We had Grosjean now behind Sorokin. There's the Russian again, struggling with his car now after his incident with Perez, and Grosjean did not obey the blue flags. Hamilton then was not able to get past these two fighting each other, as Grosjean tried to get past the Williams and doing so held up the race leader. Verstappen was now right behind the race leader, but couldn't get past. Now Verstappen said afterwards he felt it would be unfair, but since when did you ever hear a racing driver say that and actually stick to it? But there you go. Grosjean would get a 5-second time penalty for ignoring blue flags. He also got 3 points added to his licence, which means he's now 3 points away from a race ban. And when you think that his seat is possibly up for grabs as well, that could be a deciding factor in him being kept on for 2019 with Haas as well. So that is just something that he wouldn't have been wanted to do. We heard both Hamilton and Verstappen on the radio, both asking, what are they playing at? Verstappen's was a wee bit more colourful than that. It was more like, what the fuck are they doing? But yeah, it was... They didn't get out of the way. Sorokin got a time penalty later on. He basically pushed Hartley off the road, just didn't turn into the corner. And at the end of the race, we had the prospect of Bottas, Raikkonen and Ricciardo for a grandstand finish, and nothing happened. And it was all down to, and it comes back to the concept cars from the start of the week, the dirty air. Even though it was a street track, they just couldn't follow each other close enough to make a pass. It's as simple as that. but it meant that Hamilton took the win, and he now has a 40-point lead, and he is looking almost nailed on for that fifth championship. Obviously, there's still a long way to go, 125 points up for grabs, but as long as reliability and, on misfortune doesn't come his way, that championship is looking ever more closer for the Englishman. And it looks like he's going to be the man to get to 5 to match Fangio and do that before Sebastian doesn't. They could defend his championship from last season. And it was another great race. That pole lap and the way he's driving right now, despite launching his fashion line during the race between the last race in Italy and here, and getting pelters for that and people not liking him, he's constantly proving the doubters wrong. I'm sorry, he was driver of the race again. I've got to give it to him, and he's just flawless. He is, and he seems to find another level at this time of year right now. And Sebastian right now just seems to be missing something. I don't know what it is, but it's interesting, and I just don't know what's going on with the Ferrari driver. But Hamilton took the win. Verstappen was second. Really good pace, good driving coming out the pits and in the first lap as well. Could have got aggressive but didn't. He says it would have been unfair to pass Hamilton, but since when did a racing driver ever say that and stick to it? So I think it was just too tight and dangerous to pass. He decided better off it, and then Hamilton was too quick. Engine issue as well during that qualifying lap, so how close could he have been if it hadn't been for that? Vettel, Ferrari came here expecting to be favourites, and they've been blown away by Mercedes in what has traditionally been a bogey track for the champions. This is now the biggest gap all season, 40 points between them. They went aggressive with the ultra softs, and they went aggressive with passing Verstappen in lap 1. Getting stuck behind Perez cost them, and I don't know if the tyre strategy would have worked. Hitting the wall in FP2, I mean, he had never really done a long run on the Ultras, so who knows if they would have lasted. He was really far behind by the end, so who knows. Bottas, solid race, couldn't have done much. Dirty hair meant he couldn't really do much. Same for Raikkonen. He felt he was faster than Bottas, but finished where he started. And the same goes for Ricciardo as well. Tried to do a long run on the hypers and then go for the ultras at the end. But again, couldn't do very much. And there's now talk that the Red Bulls might both have to start at the back in Russia and go back to the previous B-spec Renault engine as well. So we'll see how that one goes. Fernando Alonso took 7th, much needed points for the Spaniard, made up by good strategy because obviously they got a choice of tyres, not being in the top 10, and he made a really good start. They made that work to perfection this weekend, and that meant they were best of the rest. Carlos Sainz, another good start. He basically shadowed Alonso for the whole race. He's going to be replacing him next year, and he just basically followed his hero and his fellow compatriot, took home 8th. Charles Leclerc, good race for him, more points on the weekend. He's been announced as Vettel's teammate. His only blotch on the copybook was when he hit the wall on Friday in FP1 and wiped out the front suspension. Hulkenberg took P10, which was a point again for Renault, but it was a poor start from the German, and he pitted early to try and compensate that, but he got held up behind the Perez and Sorokin fight that I mentioned earlier on. Ericsson was 11th. It was a decent race as well. He made his way back up through a few places after losing from spots through the pit stop phase. Van Dorn made up 5 places after where he started in about 17th. So that was pretty decent from him, but he was still 5 seconds down on Ericsson at the end of the race. So again, when you look at where Alonso finished, he's still not extracting the best out of the car, even though he's a quick driver. Decent race from Gasly, finishing in 13th, especially when you consider where that car is right now. It's good in certain tracks, but it just wasn't up to task around here, I don't think. Ran a long stint in hypers, but that didn't work. Stroll was in 14th. He ran a long stint on the soft, so it was a long, hard night for the Canadian. Best he could have hoped for was just getting as far up as he could. Grosjean 15th, naughty with the blue flags, as we said, when fighting Sorokin, and the leaders closing off. Now 3 points off of a ban. Could his seat be up for grabs? I'm sure we're going to find out possibly in the next couple of races. I'll get the feeling Haas, being an American team, might just announce things at circuits in America in a few races' time. Perez 16th, could have given his teammate more room. completely inexcusable in my opinion, hitting Sirotkin. Don't know what he was thinking there. So yeah, race to forget there. Sirotkin, Hartley was next. He pitted early, went the opposite way to what Gasly did, but that didn't work out as he got held up by the Williams. Magnussen had a horrible weekend. Even both driver and team can't put their finger on, and it's another weekend where the Dane, after a great start to the season, had no points. And considering that although his seat was seen as being a safe seat, the more pointless weekends he has, you start to wonder what could that mean. You've got, they're seen as being Ferrari's B team. You've got people like Antonio Giovinazzi sitting in the wings as well, things like that. So who knows? And obviously, Pascal Wehrlein's no longer a Mercedes young driver. He's been rumoured for Toro Rosso. There's talk of Danny Kvyat going back to Toro Rosso, who's kicking about. You just don't know who's going to be about. This driver market's been crazy, so anything could happen there. And he needs to pick up some points again just to make sure he is cemented, because he's not been announced yet. Last one running was Sirotkin, pitted under safety car early doors due to debris from Ocon's car. He basically had a wheel trim stuck in the front wing, held up Perez and then got hit by him as well in that move. It damaged the car, made it hard to handle, and he then got a 5-second time penalty after basically running Hartley off the road. And Ocon had good pace during the practice and qualifying. Collision with teammate Perez put him out of the race in turn 1. What does that mean for the championship? Well, as I say, Hamilton is now 40 points clear of Vettel, 281 to 241. Raikkonen in third and 174. Bottas only 3 points behind him and 171. Verstappen 148, Ricciardo 126, Hulkenberg now just 3 points clear of Alonso in the race for Formula B Championship, with Magnussen on 49 now slipping back now that he's not had a few points for a few races, with Perez and Ocon 46 and 45. And in the Constructors, Mercedes 452 to Ferrari's 415. Red Bull in the middle in no man's land on 274 points. Renault on 91. Haas on 76, but they are appealing that DQ for Grosjean at Monza. That won't be heard until November time, so it's going to be a while before that's decided. McLaren on 58. Force India already up to 32 points in 7th now, with the points made already. Toro Rosso in 8th from 30, Salva 21st, and Williams on 7th. 7 points. And last, next race up 2 weeks' time, it's Sochi in Russia. So I'll be back for that. And then obviously we head off to Suzuka in Japan before the fly-off races and the evening races, which are in US, Mexico and Brazil, and then obviously the finale in Abu Dhabi in November time. But as always, my name's Andy. If you have enjoyed this race review, do hit the like button, comment below anything you want to comment, and do hit the subscribe button to be notified of any other race reviews and videos from myself. My name is Andy, as I say. Till my next video, I'll see you again soon. Ta-ra.